Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Blue Sky Uranium Investor Webinar. Blue Sky Uranium is a leader in uranium discovery in Argentina and member of the Grasso Group. Blue Sky trades under the symbol BSK on the TSX Venture Exchange, BKUCF on the OTCQB, and MAL2 on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Joining us today is Nico Cagos, President and CEO, and Guillermo Pensado, VP Exploration and Development. We'll go through Blue Sky's September presentation, including an update on current operations and upcoming milestones. Today's presentation is also available for download on the Blue Sky website at blueskyuranium.com under Investors and Presentations. At the end of the presentation, we will open it up for questions for management to address. If you are interested in asking a question and are logged into the Zoom platform, you can submit your questions to us directly in the chat module. Please note this webinar is being recorded today, Thursday, September 16th, and will soon be made available on the company's website. Today's call may contain forward-looking statements that are subject to risks and uncertainties. They may cause actual results, performance, or developments to differ materially from those contained in the statements and are not guarantees of future performance of the company. No assurance can be given that any of the events anticipated by the forward-looking statements will occur. If they do occur, what benefits the company will obtain from them. Also, some risks and uncertainties may be out of the control of the company. Blue Sky's full disclaimer is available on slide 2 of the presentation. Lastly, RBMG is not a registered investment advisor or broker-dealer. For more information, please visit us at rbmilestone.com. It is now my pleasure to introduce you, Nico Cagos, President and CEO of Blue Sky. Nico, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Paul, and welcome everybody to Blue Sky's presentation. It's a pleasure to be back, to be talking to this great group once again. Today we'll be talking, of course, about Blue Sky and about our Amarillo Grande uranium, vanadium discovery in southern Argentina. And before I flip on the slide here, I just want to outline that what I think Blue Sky has an exceptional opportunity that truly sets us apart from all the competition out there, in that we're not working on a single uranium deposit, but we're working on an entire district that has the potential to rank amongst the largest uranium districts in the world with some of the lowest operating costs. And as we go through this presentation, I do hope that you'll see that this potential is very true. As Paul noted earlier, there are forward-looking statements in our presentation, and I do encourage you to take a closer look at the disclaimers and cautionary language. So, investment highlights. Why should you consider Blue Sky as an investment? Well, in case someone hasn't noticed, the uranium market is very hot right now. We're seeing the uranium price really beginning to increase. For a number of factors, which I'll touch on in a little bit later. And this, of course, creates a wonderful backdrop for an exploration company like Blue Sky. Secondly, Argentina itself, where we're located, there's an in-country demand for uranium, and that sets up Blue Sky for a very unique business opportunity. Again, I'll touch on as we go along. The project itself, there's value already in the project. It's underpinned by a deposit of just under 23 million pounds of uranium and 11.5 million pounds of vanadium. While this is a good start, and it's a very respectable start, the resource is definitely open for expansion. As I outlined in my opening, this entire district here is over 145 kilometers in length and 50 kilometers wide. It's got potential for many, many more discoveries, and we'll be discussing that as well. So, flipping over, we can see here's a map of Argentina, and it basically locates the Amarillo Grande uranium vanadium project, which is situated in the northern part of southern Argentina, I guess, of Patagonia. It's in the province of Rio Negro. It's the big yellow blob on the map here. And again, it's the area encompassed by the land is over 300,000 hectares. Truly a huge property package. The Grasso Group. why is it important to know about the management of a company? Well, it's always a good asset can always be mismanaged, but in this case here, we have a great asset, and we have an even more exceptional management group, the Grosso Group. They're pioneers in Argentina. They're specialists in Argentina. We have a long track record in managing and making discoveries in that country for nearly 30 years, and have basically made 4 major discoveries. We've discovered the Gualcamayo gold mine, which is still in production, the Chinchilla silver lead zinc mine, which is still in production, discovered Navidad, which is the world's largest undeveloped silver project. All of these in Argentina, all of these involved by Grosso Group. It's a batting average that very, very few management teams can claim, definitely above average. And we have an exceptional profile in that country, extremely well respected at all levels of government and within industry. We believe this gives us a real competitive edge. And more specifically, looking at the team, I'll just touch on a few of the members, not everybody, but Joe Grosso, of course, who's the founder and president of the Grosso Group. Joe Grosso is Mining Man of the Year in Argentina, has been inducted into Argentina's Mining Hall of Fame, extremely well respected in that country. We've been there for the last 30 years, as I stated, and seen all sorts of governments coming in and out. It doesn't really make a difference. Mining is very much supported, and Joe Grosso's efforts to pioneer the mining industry in that country has been very well recognized by all political sides. On the call here, joining us is also Guillermo Pensado, who's our Vice President of Exploration. Guillermo is one of the best geologists in Argentina. In fact, was awarded Exploration Geologist of the Year by his peers in Argentina just under a couple of years ago. He's a specialist in uranium with a long track record. He's worked for major mining companies like Cameco and so forth, a real integral part of this team. Chuck Edwards. Chuck is, Chuck was the chief metallurgist for Cameco for many years. He is probably the world's most well-known metallurgists and processing engineers, and there's hardly a deposit that's gone into production worldwide that doesn't have his fingerprint somehow associated with it. And very proud to say that he's been the person doing all the processing, engineering, and metallurgical work for our Ivana deposit, and really a first-class individual. In fact, this whole team here are a true talent. And I'm actually feel very privileged to be able to lead such a talented team. Well, uranium, like I said at the opening, uranium is going up. What's going on? Well, uranium is going up because the demand is increasing, and for reasons, the efforts for climate change, the efforts to reduce, to be able to generate carbon-free electricity. Nuclear energy is being recognized more and more as one of the best ways to underpin that. And then there's supply. The supply of uranium, it's not like you can switch a light on and then you can get more supply. It takes often, in many countries, it takes many years to go from discovery of a uranium deposit into generating a production of a mine. But there are other factors that are at play here too. What we're seeing exacerbating this is there's funds like the Sprott Uranium Fund and other funds that are coming into the market, into the spot market, and they're buying up uranium. So thereby increasing the demand and drying up the supply. And this is forcing companies now to have to go, that have long-term contracts with uranium mines, to have to go back into the market and to think, okay, I've got to renegotiate or a new contract because they're not going to have a steady stream of supply. So this is all exacerbating this, and this has an effect. If it's like it was back 10 years ago, we saw the price of uranium go up to $140 a pound. The uranium market is very small, so it doesn't take very much to get it rocking, and this is what's happening right now. Where in the world is uranium produced? Well, most of it comes from Kazakhstan, and the balance of it comes from countries like Canada and Australia and a bit from Namibia. And soon to be on this pie chart, you're going to see Argentina, hopefully, with because of our efforts in that country. And as I stated, the pricing for uranium, it's something that only a small amount is priced at the spot price. Most of it is the long-term contracts between a nuclear reactor and utility with directly with a mine. The spot price is there's usually a premium being paid, and these contracts tend to be between 3 and 15 years in place. Argentina. Why is Argentina unique and so beneficial for us? Because Argentina, as most investors may not be aware, is a nuclear country. Argentina is involved in all facets of the nuclear industry, including nuclear, has 3 power plants in operation. They're actually building another couple more reactors right now. They have atomic centers. They build and export small modular mines. They're involved in every facet of the nuclear cycle except for the production of uranium. So for this, currently they are importing all the uranium need, and they're having to pay a substantial premium. And this is what I said at the opening, is where creates a very unique situation for Blue Sky, because as this long-term contract between Argentina and the country that exports uranium to Argentina begins to expire in the next year or so, it's setting up we can be in a position where Blue Sky could be the very first supplier of uranium to Argentina. And then, of course, we hope to also be able to export any surplus. And this brings us directly to the Amarillo Grande project. To give everyone a more detailed overview of that, I'm going to pass the baton over to Guillermo. Guillermo?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming again, and nice to being here explaining about this great project to everyone. And this is a good picture to start the technical part, which easily explain the area where we are exploring. This is a flat area, desert area in the northern part of Patagonia, as Nico mentioned before. And that beautiful blue sky is something that we usually have along the year, so we can work year round. Next, please. Amarillo Grande is a discovery made by Blue Sky back in 2006, when our specialists in uranium prospecting, former national government company, decided to go to this new province for exploration uranium in Argentina and discover uranium just driving along road with a scintillometer, a device to measure radiation. And we found this new entire district, which was finally discovered after a year of intensive exploration that show up with airborne radiometric surveys, significant anomalies like those at Santa Barbara in the northern part, and it in the center. If you see that block there is 15 kilometers long, strong radiometric anomaly. And continuing to the south, we have Ivana sector with several anomalies, though reddish, yellowish colors in the southern portion. Or finally, in 2017, when we started an intensive RC drilling program, we discovered the Ivana deposit itself. And after 2 years of intensive works, we could finally have our initial preliminary economic assessment and an updated resource estimation. Next, please. So, talking again about where we are working, this is a good picture of the area. Good area to be exploring uranium is a depression in the middle of the Rio Negro province, well apart from communities or cities, but still with very good infrastructure. We have paved road, we have dirty roads, we have energy, we have water, we are close to railways and deep ports, and also in a province with a good service provision, because they have very well developed oil and gas sector. It's also a province with good experience in the nuclear sector. They have a research nuclear reactor, as well as pilot uranium enrichment plant. So that means that it's a province that know about this industry. And it's open not only for us, if not for many other exploration companies exploring for gold and copper. And actually it's a very active zone. Next, please. So the mineralization discovered first in the northern portion was typically carnotite, which is an uranium vanadate. So it's a mineral composed by uranium and vanadium with this yellowish color, that it was or coating pebbles or in a fine material of salty or poor consolidated sediments. And so it was initially described as a superficial type deposit and recognized it for kilometers and kilometers of mineralization. We control actually more than 140 kilometers, 100% controlled by Blue Sky, because we found uranium in many, many areas. Those type of mineralization and similar to those observed at West Australia or Africa in Namibia, they are producers in the world. But finally, when we went deeper in the exploration back in 2017, we understood that that superficial mineralization, it was only the superficial expression of a bigger system related to a sandstone type deposit, which in general terms in the world, they represent the bigger producers of uranium today, and very well recognized it in United States or the first producing zone today in Kazakhstan. So this is uranium being precipitated in the middle of sediments, sandstone or conglomerates. And in our case, because we are seeing mineralization from surface, that means that our exploration, it's very low cost because we drill short holes. As an example, Ivana deposit, the average depth is 15 meters only because the mineralization is between 0 and 25, 30 meters in depth. And because we are in poor consolidated or unconsolidated sediments, means that in a potential future production, we won't need drilling or blasting. So it may be a very low operation cost also. Next, please. So the mineralization, the type of mineralization that I was mentioning, the sandstone type deposit, have similarities to those in Kazakhstan. It's a big paleo or antique fluvial system or groundwater system rich in uranium, where uranium was precipitated, what it was trapped by what we call a redox front or a trap, we can mention. Those kind of deposits in Kazakhstan could be as big as Inkai mine with more than 200 million pounds. And also you can have along this trap zone or redox front several or multiple deposits as we expect to find at Amarillo Grande. Now, Amarillo Grande, by now, we only discovered the Ivana deposit at the southernmost sector, but we have uranium manifestations all along the 140 kilometers, which are actually under exploration. Next, please. So today, at this point, we have a resource estimation, inferred minerals for almost 22.7 million pounds uranium, grading 0.03%, plus 11.5 million pounds vanadium, which is a good credit for the overall economics of the deposit. As I mentioned before, the mineralization is mainly carnotite, but also in the bit deeper part, which is the primary, actually under oxidation, is coffinite, a typical mineral in sandstone type deposit. And as I mentioned also, is Ivana deposit is between 0 and 25 centimeters in depth. Next, please. This is the map of Ivana deposit. As you can see, it's a huge area, a long corridor, almost 5 kilometers long, with a higher zone in that darkness part in the middle, that is still open for expansion. We are planning to expand those resources to the southwest, where we have some pit samplings, as you can see. And also we are expecting to advance an infill program to adjust actual drilling pattern in order to upgrade our mineral resources. Next, please. So we found this volume of mineralization that it was our first goal to achieve, and we did more than expected, really. The second part of our initial program was to evaluate the capacity to recuperate that mineralization at a very low cost. And finally, with the good assistance of Chuck Edward, who is in charge of all these metallurgical and processing test works, we could define that we can recuperate uranium plus vanadium with a very simple processing methodology with two steps. The first one, simple wet scrubbing and screening. That means separate the mineral coating the pebbles or in the fine material between the grains by screening. That means that you can separate the coarse material with no mineralization and pre-concentrate the very fine material, which represent almost a quarter of the initial volume. And that pre-concentration also imply an increase in the grades for almost 4 times. And with that pre-concentrate material, you can go to an alkaline leaching process with no oxidation or flotation. So that means very low cost and also low environmental impact technology that also represent lower cost. The overall process recovery is 85% for uranium and 53% for vanadium. Next, please. So we could further define the deposit. Secondly, define that we can potentially recuperate and at low cost. We had to also estimate how expensive or the cost to produce that mineralization on that mine. And because we are talking about mineralization in sediments on surface or near surface, that represent a deposit that can be mined as a simple quarry. So that means no drilling or blasting. You just need to take with the shock the material, process the material, and finally remediate the mine. So the idea is that by the end of the production, we can leave all this zone as close to it is today. Next, please. So with all those numbers, the volume, grades, the recovery cost, plus the type of production, we ran a preliminary economic assessment that Nico may probably summarize for you.
So thank you, Guillermo. Yes, so the PEA, which we published a couple of years ago, why did we do it at such an early stage? Well, we established, like Guillermo said, very quickly a deposit. And before we invested any significant sums of money in terms of developing this entire district, we wanted to see, does it make sense? Is there a business case for this? Is it competitive on a worldwide basis? So with that kind of thinking in the background, we stepped in and we did all the studies that Guillermo just finished talking about, plugged in the numbers. And the two key figures that we're really focusing on is, okay, if we're going to get this up and running as a production, what would be the pre-production cost, the CapEx, basically? And those came in at around $100 million, with plus a $28 million contingency amount. So this number was important because we feel that as we explore the surrounding area and as we plan to use a mobile production plant, these pre-production capital costs aren't going to change very much. So as we add more pounds, these costs are going to remain relatively fixed. So that's a good number to keep in mind. And the second number was, of course, okay, for every pound of uranium that we would produce, what would it cost? And our numbers came in at just over $16 a pound. And, for cash cost, if you include all the all-in sustaining costs, it's just over $18 a pound. And, and then you start thinking, okay, what does all this mean? How does this compare around the world? Even though we know that the price of uranium is significantly higher than what their cost would be. So what we did is we took these numbers and plotted them on a graph against other producers around the world. And the red line, the red bar there, indicates the PEA numbers for the Havana deposit as if it were in a production scenario. And what we saw is that it ranked, if this was in production today, it would rank in the lowest first quartile of cost curve in terms of production. In fact, we would be surrounded with all these deposits in Kazakhstan, which are some of the world's lowest cost producers, supplying most of the world's uranium, as we saw at the outset of this presentation. So from a business case, this is a great space to be. Geez, this is only the beginning. We could imagine now that as we add and make more discoveries of additional resources, these costs, we should not change very much, but it should increase the, and with the CapEx remaining relatively fixed, the profitability should become much, much higher than what has been depicted so far. So this was a very, very important first leg to understand. And the second part of all of this is to see, can we expand the deposit now? First, we know we can produce it really low, really cheaply. Second of all, how big can this get? How quickly can we expand it? And that's exactly the stage that we're at right now. We announced back in the spring a 4,500 meter drill program. We've completed the first 1,500 meters. We're analyzing the results. I think we're going to have results coming out in the next, imminently in the next week or so, as results are still trickling in. But as we go back in now and resume drilling within the areas around it, which is on this map depicted numbers 2 and 3, which are Havana Central and Havana North, and of course number 5, which is Havana East, as the permitting for that advances. The idea is, how quickly can we grow this? I mean, we discovered the Havana deposit with basically a first round of drilling. I think having now a better understanding of what the mineralization that controls these deposits, we feel a lot of confidence that our current resource could grow going forward. So we've got a drill program right now that's being planned, that currently underway. Results coming out the next week and a half. I could see drilling probably continuing well into the first quarter of 2022, and we're going to have continuous news coming out during that time period. And as the news begins to come out, I think it puts basically Blue Sky's valuation in a position where we can be revalued very, very quickly. And with the rising price of uranium, I think we can see a very sort of rosy forecast here. And in conclusion, Blue Sky's Rio Grande project, it's a great project with outstanding potential. Access is easy. Provincial infrastructure is there, basically. In fact, even the province is involved in the nuclear business. The geological setting and the characteristics of this deposit, just like what we've seen in Kazakhstan, which is some of the biggest producing districts in the world. It's a great comparison to be up against. In terms of value, we've got already a resource of just under 23 million pounds of uranium that underpins the value of Blue Sky, and a PEA that we've completed, the initial one. It establishes the viability. So yes, this project does have the potential to rank amongst the largest uranium districts in the world with some of the lowest operating costs. It's open to expansion. We've got drilling now underway with results imminently due to come. I think this is a very exciting project, unlike other uranium companies out there, our peers, and it's got the ability to basically change and increase our market cap very, very quickly, with positive results, of course. With that, I want to thank everybody for listening, and I guess we open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Nico. Once again, if you are interested in asking a question and are logged into the Zoom platform, please submit your questions to us directly in the chat. We'll start with the questions received prior to the start of today's webinar. First question, I understand that the large state-owned nuclear company from China is financing and building 2 nuclear reactors in Argentina. They will want a domestic fuel supply. Have they spoken to you as of yet?
Well, you are correct. The large state-owned Chinese nuclear company is involved in Argentina. They are building these reactors, and in fact, they are talking they are looking for a domestic source of supply. Have we contacted them? We've been in touch, but that's basically all I can say at this point. I'm not at liberty to disclose anything further.
It's a two-part question here, and we also received the along those same lines just now in the chat. So what do you expect to achieve with this current drill program? The question received in the chat was, when do you know the results of the drill program? And perhaps it makes sense to connect here. What is the current pathway and timeline to production?
Well, thank you for the question. As I stated just a little while ago, we expect results in the next week and a half to come out. We're at our exploration phase of the company right now. For the next 6 months, I expect we plan to continue drilling. We plan perhaps to increase the amount of drilling that we're doing there to see if we can speed up our exploration phase, as there are many targets that we do want to test. And our objective here, of course, is to, okay, we've got just under 23 million pounds of uranium. Can we find an additional Ivana deposit or two? Can we double, triple, quadruple that? And then once we get to that stage, at some point we have to, we're going to draw a line, say, okay, now we're going to move in towards doing a pre-feasibility study. And a pre-feasibility study will last around 10 months. In fact, we've begun some aspects of the pre-feasibility study now, including environmental baseline studies and metallurgical test work and whatnot. And in about 10 months' time, when we complete that, that brings us to the results of that pre-feasibility study. We'll be able to dictate which way we go in terms of a production decision. And beyond that, we move towards permitting and so forth for production. But I would just want to add at this point that Blue Sky and our team here, we're explorationists. We're really good explorationists. We know what we're doing. We have a great track record and a great team, but we're not productionists. Even though we could take this to production, I would think at this point I would feel more comfortable teaming up with a large experienced producer, whether it's the Chinese state-owned company or whoever it might be, in terms of either joint venturing, parceling out parts of it, selling it all outright. Everything depends on circumstances at that time and what's best basically for the company and for shareholders. So that's kind of the outlook between here and going forward into production.
Thank you, Nico. A question we just received right now. How big does your deposit have to grow for it to look economic?
I think it looks economic now. If just like the PEA stated, if this was in production, it would be making money today. But we feel that with drilling relatively cheap, because a lot of the mineralization is in the first 15 or so meters from surface down, we can accomplish a significant amount of drilling and test a significant number of targets. We feel that we have a way better than average chance of increasing the size of this deposit in the next 6 months or so.
Thank you. Question received prior to this webinar. When will you need to undertake another financing?
Well, right now we're well financed to complete all our exploration programs and drilling. The next decision point on when to embark on the financing would be at the onset of the formal pre-feasibility studies. Study like that, it ranges between $10 to $15 million. And, it would depend what the conditions are at that time, whether we would undertake an equity funding, whether we would do a deal with an engineering company. Sometimes they allow for funds to be advanced, and then they get paid back from proceeds of production. There's a lot of different ways to fund something like that at that point. But I think for now, in the near term, we're in a great position to go forward with not having to dilute our company any further.
Can you talk about any current challenges that might be that you're facing currently?
Well, there's always challenges in the exploration world, and whether it's a mining, gold mine, uranium, or whatever it might be, they're all challenges are similar. We try to mitigate all these challenges. I think the breadth and the long experience of the Grosser Group and our management team go a very long way towards mitigating a lot of risks out there. I think we have great relations with all the government, great relations with all the governments and levels of government. We have great respect within the industry in Argentina. We have a very actively engaged program with the local communities. We provide we're a big source of jobs for them. There is, of course, exploration risk itself. You never know what you're going to get until you get it. I think that's what contributes to the excitement of exploration. That's what attracts me to be in this industry. So there's always these kinds of challenges that are out there, but nothing out of the ordinary, though.
And unless any of our attendees have any questions, and again, I would like to thank everybody for joining us today. Can you comment on the recent share price performance?
Well, our share price has been moving up, but we're not alone in this. If you tracking a basket of uranium companies, whether they're production or exploration companies, they've all been swept up by this uranium tide, and everybody's been moving up, and where their volumes are definitely up. So we're definitely seeing institutional investors now beginning to take positions, having to include uranium in their portfolios. And this is, of course, causing a big stir in the markets. We welcome it. It's about time, because uranium, I think, is one of those elements that are needed. The world, in terms, we cannot be in a position to supply. The world cannot create safe, secure, and reliable and carbon-free energy without having a very significant amount of nuclear energy in its mix. And we're seeing this being replicated around the world with all these new reactors being built. And I think uranium is going to be here to stay.
It looks like those are all the questions we received today. And thanks again, guys. And thanks again, everyone, for joining today's webinar. Once again, it will soon be made available on the Blue Sky website. If you have any additional questions that have not been addressed on this webinar, please feel free to email us at bluesky@rbmilestone.com. Again, that's bluesky@rbmilestone.com. Thanks again. You're now free to disconnect.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.